All right. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. We are back.
Yeah.
Continuing with our look at the triennial Torah portion. This week we are looking at Genesis chapter 32. Bereshit 32. Bereshit chapter 32, which is V'Yaakov Halak. V'Yaakov Halak. And Yaakov went. And Yaakov went. And Jacob went. Okay. So we are going to go ahead and jump right in, get started straight away. Let me pull up the scriptures here for us. We're going to just go ahead and read through the entire chapter. There's basically two main situations that we want to discuss within the chapter. We'll go ahead and look at that, discuss. We want everyone to go ahead and put your comments in the comment section. Make sure that you add to our discussion as we dive into these scriptures. So put your questions, comments, whatever in the comment section. Also, don't forget to like the video. Go ahead and share it. Share it with your peoples on your different social medias. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you in advance for doing that. Okay, so let me go ahead now and pull up for us Bereshit chapter 32. Go ahead and read that all the way through.
All right.
Nice and loud there.
It says, and Yaakov went on his way, and the messengers of Elohim met him. And when Yaakov saw them, he said, "This is the camp of Elohim." And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Yaakov sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the field of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, "Say this to my master Esau. Your servant Jacob said this, I have sojourned with Laban, and I stayed there until now. And I have bulls and donkeys, flocks and male and female servants, and I have sent to inform my master to find favor in your eyes." So the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and he also is coming to meet you, and 400 men with him." And Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. So he divided the people that were with him, the flocks and herds and camels, in two groups. And he said, if Esau comes to the one group and strikes it, then the other group which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, "O Elohim of my father Abraham, and Elohim of my father Yitzhak, Yahweh, who said to me, return to your land and to your relatives, and I do good to you. I do not deserve the least of all the loving commitment and all the truth which you have shown your servant, for I passed over this Jordan with my staff. And now I have become two groups. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and shall strike me and the mother with the children. For you said, I shall certainly do good to you, and I shall make your seed as the sand of the sea, which are too numerous to count." And he spent the night there, and took what came to his hand, a present for Esau his brother, 200 female goats, and 20 male goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 suckling camels with their colts, 40 cows, and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 foals. And he gave it into the hand of his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, "Pass over before me, and put some distance between drove and drove." And he commanded the first one, saying, "When Esau, my brother, meets you and asks you, 'To whom do you belong, and where are you going, and whose are these in front of you?' then you shall say, 'They are your servant Jacob's,' or Jacob's. 'It is a present sent to my master Esau, and see, he also is behind us.' So he commanded the second and third and all the following droves, saying, 'Speak to Esau the same word when you find him. And you shall say also, Look, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, Let me appease him with the present that goes before me, and after that see his face. He might accept me.' And the present passed over before him, but he himself spent the night in the camp. And he rose up that night, and took his 2 wives, and his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford of Yabbok. And he took them, and sent them over the stream, and sent over what he had. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. And when he saw that he did not overcome him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was dislocated as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaks. But he said, I am not letting you go until you have blessed me. So he asked him, What is your name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Your name is no longer Jacob, but Israel, because you have striven with the Elohim and with men, and have overcome. And Jacob asked him, saying, Please let me know your name. And he said, Why do you ask about my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved. And the sun rose on him as he passed over Peniel, and limped on his hip. That is why the children of Israel do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of the thigh of Jacob in the sinew of the hip.
All right. Okay. Very good. Very good. All right. Let's go back up here to the top. Take it from the top. All the way back up to the beginning. So we see that we remember where we are in the story. Yaakov is leaving from Laban's camp. He's going off into his freedom. He was in essentially servitude, to his uncle Laban for the past several years there, and he's on his way back to the land of promise, the place where he was with his peoples, the land that was given to him. He came from the land of his fathers, which was back there with Laban, but he's going back over to the place where where Abraham was sent, and which was given and promised to him. If we remember, he left out kind of in haste, in a hostile situation, and his mother had told him to go ahead and go and find him a wife, not only leave because he was escaping his brother, but also to go and find himself a wife. And so now he's on his way back, and we see it says that as he went on his way, messengers of Elohim met him. Okay, so first of all, let's go back where it says Yaakov went, right? Because this is Yaakov Halak. I want to just look real fast here at. Oh, 1 second. Let me just pull up for us the dictionary so that we can just see some things here. Make this just a little bigger here. All right, so Yaakov went, which here is Halak. Halak is to walk. We have the word halakha, which essentially is the way in which people do the commands of the Most High. Sometimes when we deal with the scriptures, there are things that may not necessarily be explicitly explained. And so you have, people, different ones who may have a particular understanding about a thing and they do it in a particular way, and that is their halakha, right? That is their walk. That is how they do it. And again, that derives from this word here, halach, which is a walk. And so it's interesting when we look at, and let me just pull up here this word, halak. It's interesting when we look at this word, halach, we think about the walk of an individual. This chapter here kind of begins to help us to understand the walk of those that are called unto the Most High. It's interesting when we see this, that this, this begins in this way, and, within this chapter, we're able to see this kind of thing here. If we look, let's see here if I can just do this without, we don't see the, okay, where's that little board? If I don't see the actual, oh, here we go. Oh, we can do it with this right here. Okay, good. So when we look here, the word halach is it's a hey, right? It's a lamed, and it's this kuf here, right? And so when we look at halach, it is the man with his arms raised. The man with his arms raised is breath. When we think about breath, we can also think about the spirit, right? The spirit, actually, the ruach, the word for ruach actually is wind, right? Which is air. And so when we think about a man with his hands raised, it can give us the idea of breath or the spirit even. It is this breath, this wind that is within right? A breath that is within. The breath that is within is something that if you don't have it, you can't live. Right? If you don't have air in you, if you don't have breath in you, you're dead. Right? And so it's interesting when we think about our walk, which Yaakov is beginning. He's really beginning his walk. You could even say as a man, he's beginning it now. When he left, he really he wasn't a man. He may have been a man in terms of age, but he was still, not to say that he was living on his mommy's couch or whatever, but the idea, he hadn't began his family. He didn't have things of his own, right? He was living under really the reign of his parents, right? He went out really to begin his purpose as a man, and it happened. The beginning processes really happened, while he was gone. And so now he goes, he starts a family, and now he has his own, and he's coming back. And so he's literally beginning his walk. And it's interesting that we're able to see, yes, his mother sends him out, right? But as he goes, he's drawing closer to the Most High, and the Most High is leading him, right? And so we see the beginning of his leading from the Most High, from the Spirit, from the breath that is within, right? We see the breath that is within leading him. It's interesting when we see this lamed here. The lamed is the shepherd's staff, the shepherd's goad that you use to lead the sheep, right? You lead the flock with this thing. Sometimes you got to prod and push and guard off with it. Sometimes you have to use this thing as a weapon against those that come against your flock. Sometimes you use it as a rod of correction for the flock, right? You have these various aspects of this shepherd's staff that is used, and then also we see this hand, right? This open palm. And so when we think about this breath from within, this leading from the breath that is within, and also this open palm, we can think about being in the hand of the Father, right? All of these things, these little things that we see in this word, halak, which kind of give us this picture of understanding of Jacob beginning his walk, beginning his life with the Father, beginning his life with the Almighty, and stepping into his purpose in general. And so, I thought that was interesting.
Because really, he was under Laban's house all that time.
Exactly,
Seemed like
right?
whatever Laban
He
said
went
was
from
gonna happen.
his father's house to his uncle's house, and that's exactly right. He went from one man's house to another's, and so really now is the beginning of his walk. It's the beginning, because when he left from his father's house, he just went over to his soon-to-be father-in-law's house, right? So his situation, in terms of his family dynamic, was exactly the same, right? He went from his natural father's house to his uncle, which really served as his father for those years. And that was his ruler. Like
He literally was a slave.
yes, he was his slave. He abided by the rules of his master Laban, all of those times, and so I think it's very apropos. I don't know. Is that French? Is that French? I don't know. If it sounds French. It's very apropos that as he begins his walk, in this chapter, that it begins this way. Via Yaakov Halak here. Okay? All right, very good. So, let us look at the second half of this verse here. And the messengers of Elohim met him. All right. The messengers of Elohim, they met him. So the King James says angels. So let's look here at this word here, translated as angels. Malak. 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 Which is root meaning to dispatch as a deputy. A deputy, a messenger, specifically of Elohim, that is an angel, also a prophet, priest, or teacher, ambassador, angel, king, messenger. So the word literally means to dispatch. This word literally means to dispatch. And so when we think about this word, malach, it sounds like melech, right? It sounds like king. And so what we have here is this word that is to dispatch as a deputy. When you think about a deputy is somebody who moves on the authority of the sheriff, right? The sheriff is the one with the power, right? And then he deputizes, he authoritizes, I don't know if that's a word, he authoritizes peoples and deputizes them, right? He kind of delegates his authority to them, and they go off and use the authority given to them by the sheriff out. They go out. And so when we think about Melech, the king, and Malach, these messengers, is the same idea, right? Where you have the power, the authority, the jurisdiction that is connected with the king. He gives that over to his messengers who he has this dispatched his authority to these deputies, and they go off and represent him other places. And so when we see messengers of Elohim met him, again, the King James here says angel, but the word, I just want to just say that the word don't necessarily mean angel, but when we think about the messengers of Elohim in this context, that's what that is, right? His messengers, the spiritual Elohim that he is, his messengers are in fact angels, right? There could be messengers of, Elohim is kind of this being a title and not a name. You can be a man and be an Elohim, and there can be messengers of Elohim, and those men, those can be men. And so the word in and of itself, again, don't mean angels, but when we're thinking about the messengers of Elohim in this context, this is what they are, right? You could literally be both corporal or non-corporal beings, the word. But again, when we look and try to understand the scriptures, we have to always take into account the context, right? So when we look over here, we see that these spiritual beings, these messengers of Elohim, are interacting with the physical realm, right? These angels here are, which have been sent by Elohim, they are helping the cause of Yaakov as it relates to Esau, right? Because Esau wanted to kill his brother Yaakov. And, he said what he was going to do.
He made it clear.
He said what he was going to do, and he never said that he wasn't going to do it, right? And so Jacob,
he said he was waiting.
Yeah, he was waiting. He said those words to him that I wanted to, that I think would be perfect, inside of in the context of a movie. I wish I could make a movie and put it together, because that would be an exciting little scene whenever, Esau said this before, when Esau, comes up to Jacob and kind of stands next to him and whispers in his ear and says that, when your daddy dies, I'm going to let you mourn, and then I'm going to kill you. Right, that's what he does, right? And so he never goes back on that. He never takes it back, right? And so here, let's go over here and look, because this is interesting and part of the situation that we see going on here. Let's go over to Genesis 27. Read for us here, starting at verse 41.
And Esau hated Yaakov because of the blessing which his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father draw near. Then I'm going to kill my brother Yaakov.
Keep on going.
And the words of Esau, her older son, were reported to Rivkah. And she sent and called Yaakov, her younger son, and said to him, see, your brother Esau comforts himself concerning you to kill you. And now, my son, listen to my voice and rise. Flee to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay with him a few days until your brother's wrath turns away. Until your brother's displeasure turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. And I shall send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereaved of you both in one day?
Okay, very good. So it's interesting. His mother is very optimistic, as mothers can often be. She's very optimistic. Just lay low for a few days, just for some time. Hold on one second. Let me just look at this. I'm just interested to know here. Oh, yom. It literally says yom here. Just a few days. Just a few days. Just for some time. Just let some days go by. A few of them. What's this word here? Achad. Interesting. This our idea of achad, if we just think about one, is less than a few. Right? It's less than a few. The King James is very generous when it says a few, right? And so in
what verse is that?
44.
44. Okay.
Excuse me. It's yes, 44. And so when we look over here again, their mother, Rivka, she's very optimistic. Go a few days, stay with with your brothers, with my brother, your uncle, hang out over there, and I'll send for you. She said, I'll send for you and bring it right. She never did. She never sent for him. He was gone for years.
He was never.
He went back.
20 years.
He went back on the unctioning of the Most High. The Most High said for him to go back. She never sent for him. And so since we see that she never sent for him, I think it's safe for us to assume that Esau always wanted to kill him.
He never forgot.
His wrath never cooled. He was always filled with that hot wax anger and wrath. It was always there. And so she was never able to give him the word to come back. And so he, Yaakov, that is, was moving based off the fact that the Most High had for him to leave. Right, that's how we were able to look at that and see that when we dealt with what was going on in the last chapter. That's why we weren't able to fault Yaakov for any of the things that he had did, because the Most High, in fact, told him to do it. Right, the Most High gave him the blessings that he had from Laban. Right, and so the Most High told him to go. So it seems when we look over here that these angels, these, if you will, these ministering angels, have been sent ahead in order to work on the heart of Esau, so that when they do in fact meet, he does not kill his brother. Right, because I don't know why he travels with these 400 people. Right, that seems like an army. Right, that seems like an army.
They wasn't just walking around.
Yeah, I don't think that they were just randomly going. He may have got wind and word that
Jacob was coming.
that Jacob was coming back. And so he got his people together, maybe so that he could go ahead and do what he had to do and not have none of the family try to even get involved. I ain't going to let him come back and, kill him in front of his people. I'm going to go out and meet him and kill him out in the wilderness, I guess. Maybe that was the thought process. I don't know. It don't say. But we're able to look and see that these messengers of Elohim met him, right? And so it's interesting that we see this situation where these angels, these messengers of Elohim, are going out and working on behalf of Jacob, right? They're working on behalf of Jacob to kind of, because we see back, I'm saying back for us, but forward in time here in the Bible, when it talks about the Most High hardening the heart of Pharaoh, right? If he can harden someone's heart, it seems that he's able to also soften someone's heart, which is in fact something that probably needs to be done, right? What do we have here? Comments. Let's see. Amos 1:11. Let's pull that up. Let's see what it says here. Go ahead, read that verse right there, verse 11.
Thus said Yahweh, for 3 transgressions of Edom and for 4, I do not turn it back, because he pursued his brother with the sword and cast off all compassion, and his displeasure tore in incessantly, and he kept his wrath forever.
He kept his wrath forever. Okay, very good. Yes, so, very good. All right, very good. So, that's what we see, right? And so, if he's on his way to meet Yaakov, we have to, the Most High needs for Yaakov to keep on going, right? He needs for him to be. And so, again, we see these messengers going off and doing their thing. So I want to look at this. I want to think about this idea of these angels, right? Let's look at some verses here. Let's go to Psalms 91. Psalms 91, read verses 11 and 12.
11 and 12. For he commands his messengers concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone.
Okay, so we see this is a pretty good example, right, of the Most High sending his messengers to guard you, right, to keep you. Right? To keep you from harm. What's this here? What's this word here? To shamar, right? To put a hedge about you as with thorns. Right? To keep things that are harmful out. And also to keep you in. Right? And so he's sending these messengers concerning you to guard you in all of your ways, right? In all the things that you are doing, he has these messengers to, in fact, guard you. What's this here? This is our word here, malach, right? Let's look at some more of these here. This is not a kind of just thing that we see just in a singular place, but we see this kind of all over the place. Let's look at Hebrews 1. Let's see what's this? The last two verses here of the first chapter. 13 and 14. What's that?
13 and 14. And to which of the messengers did he ever say, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet? Are they not all serving spirits sent out to attend those who are about to inherit deliverance?
Okay, very good. So we see these here are messengers that are going out to ensure the way of Jacob. Right? These are messengers going out to ensure the way of Jacob. And so when we think about this, kind of as an idea, when we think about, we, have these, we have things that we must do, right? And sometimes, we have these places where we got to go. And maybe, we're potentially facing some treacherous environments, right? We're able to petition unto the Most High, and he can send out these messengers to ensure your path and your way, right? When we go to the Father and ask for his protection, for his guarding, right? And so we see an example of this with Jacob, right? This is what happened. He's going into hostile territory. And so we have to remember, we have to think about the fact that here, if we go over to Ephesians, right, you know where we going. Ephesians 6:12. What's that say?
Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies.
Okay, very good. So, we in fact are, we live in this flesh. We live in this flesh. We live in this carnal world, right? It says we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but in all actuality, there's times that we actually do, right? But we have to understand the essence of our situation is a spiritual situation. And so we're able to deal with these physical situations and circumstances that we will in fact get into from a spiritual perspective, right? And know that if we attack our situations from a spiritual standpoint, we're able to arrive at a place of victory because we dealt with the most important situation first, that is the spirit, right? Because, we are led by the spirit, whether it be the spirit of the Most High or it be the spirit of the world, right? Something has control over you, whether it is the Almighty or whether it is these principalities and authorities in high places. And so we see that this is what happened with Jacob, right? He, the Most High, sends out these messengers before him to deal with Esau, who we see in fact where his wrath never wavers. And so why is it that we see we know that Jacob don't die on this mission, right? The answer is because the Most High through these messengers must have dealt with him accordingly, so that because Edom don't begin to love Jacob after this, right? Amos, he's a prophet that comes way later, right? So nothing ever changes, and so we seen that there must have been some spiritual intervention that happens so that he's able to make it, right? Because he never didn't want to kill his brother. And so this is just something that we're able to look for and see that we have to deal with things from a spiritual perspective. Many times we have to deal with these battles that are beyond anything that we can physically do, right? Jacob, he didn't have an army with him, right? He was never going to be any match for his brother from a physical standpoint. And so it was necessary for him to deal with what was coming properly, and the only way to do that was through this spiritual intervention that we see. All right, let's keep on going here. Let's look at verse number 2. Where it's interesting when we look at verse number 2, something kind of similar happens that similar to what we saw with Jacob previously. We look over at this verse 2 here. It says, "This is the camp of Elohim." Let's look at this. Let's look at this Machanaim word here. Machanaim. Machanaim. Double camp. Right? This word here means encampment. It means army. Right? Band, battle, camp, company, drove, hosts. Right? And so when we think about this thing that's going on over here where Esau in fact has an army, right? There may be a lot of people with Yaakov, but they're not an army, right? This is not an army, right? But Yaakov has this spiritual army, right? Where it says here, this word is a doubling. Is a doubling of this word here, machane, right? Which is an encampment, right? And so this is a doubling of the encampment. And so when we think about this, it's kind of similar if we remember where Yaakov, sleeps with his head on the rock pillow and has the vision, the dream of the ladder with the angels going up and down the ladder. He sees this gate, this place of angels going up and down into the heavenlies, right? And so he sees that in a time where he needs kind of reassurance in his situation. There's many places in Scripture where Jacob, in fact, needs reassurance. And so we see here where, he has this kind of visitation with this double encampment to kind of help him to go forward with this hard situation. It's interesting. We have anyone who spends any time looking at the scriptures, we know what the word actually says, right? You have a familiarity with the word and all of the things that it says. If you spent any time studying the scriptures, right? And so theoretically, one who has read or has been reading the scriptures, you have a allotment of spiritual and scriptural tools to pull from. But it's interesting when you get into a particular situation and then something that over time has been implanted into your spirit comes to mind at an opportune time for you to use it, right? And so we know that Jacob at this point must know that the Most High is with him. But it's necessary for there to be kind of this spiritual refresher thing to happen to cause him to be able to continue along in faith, where it says that he saw this encampment of Elohim, right? He saw this large group of armies, right, of messengers right? This double encampment of angels, where he knew that he was going to meet up with his arch nemesis, his potential doom. Right, he's moving on into unknown territories. And I'm saying not because he never was at the place that he was going, but again, this is like a transition point in his life. Like he don't know what went on over there, while he was gone, and now he has all of these added responsibilities: wives, children, servants, animals. These things that now he is responsible for. He needed reassurance, spiritual reassurance, so that he was able to continue and go and move the way that he was supposed to be moving. And the Most High provided that for him. And so I think that it's interesting when we look at this, where we see that the Most High didn't allow for the situation that he was going into. He didn't allow for him to be overwhelmed with, that experience that he was about to go into. He protected him on multiple levels, right? He came and gave him reassurance with him actually having this vision of this encampment. Not only that, but he has these messengers go out to meet with, prepare Esau before they even come together, for their meeting, so that he's able to move forward. Okay. All right. So let's keep on going. Anybody have any questions, comments? Go ahead and put them over there in the comment section. And so I want to look at, when we think about the idea of angels. It's not really something that it's not something that we often think about, right? We think about the Most High. We think about the Ruach HaKodesh. We think about Yeshua, right? But we don't think about the place of angels, right? And it's interesting that we see this kind of put for us here, but when we think about, what it is that we have to gain in everything, right, is just as great, if not greater, than when we look at Jacob's situation, right? Because now at this point, it's not just him that he's living for, right? He's living for something that's greater. My wife always loved things that cause her to think about things that are greater than herself, right? Even if it's just a race or whatever, right? But there are things for us to inherit. And so the Most High makes for us a way to secure these things that are significant in our lives. And so I'm going to look at a few scriptures here as we, before we keep on going. Let's go over to let's look at Matthew 19. Matthew 19. Read verse 29 right there. Might as well read 29 and 30.
And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. But many who are first shall be last, and the last first.
When we think about Jacob's journey, he literally left houses, right? And brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers, right? He literally left from a family situation, a safe situation, into a situation that dealt with the unknown for the purposes of his spiritual purpose. He was the one that the Most High, reiterates the covenant with, right? The fact that the Most High makes this promise to Abraham, we know that the way in which these promises are fulfilled is through Jacob. And so when we think about what Jacob is doing, what he's in the process of doing as he begins his walk, he's beginning his walk of purpose that's connected to the Most High. And so the Most High is saying through what this says over here in red letters from what Yeshua said, everyone who has left houses and brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers and wives and children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold. Is he supposed to believe or think that he is going out to really do and work the purposes of the Most High and he's not going to make it? And so the Most High knew he was going to make it, but it was necessary for the Most High to kind of to help Jacob to understand that he was in fact going to make it, and he was going to fulfill the thing that the Most High started in him, right? All right, let's look at some other things over here, because we got to know that when the Most High sends us out on our journey, that we're going to face Edom. Edom's over there waiting for us, right? And he got a bigger crew than we got. But it don't matter really how big the adversity is if we're moving according to the unctioning of the Most High. And that's what we see with Jacob over here. He didn't just say, well, you might think just at a glance, oh, his mama never called for him. Why is he going back? Right? But we already know that the Most High is sending him back. And so he don't need for the people that were kind of in charge of his situation previously to co-sign his situation, right? What the only thing he needs is to know that the Most High is sending him on this way, and he's beginning his walk with the Father, and so the Most High, is the only stamp that he needs over here. He's doing the Father's work, right? And so when we're operating according to what the Most High has for us to be doing, that's the only important thing. And he's going to allow for the thing that he started in you to be manifest, no matter what things may look like. Okay, so let's look at Matthew 25 32. 32, read through 34.
And all the nations shall be gathered before him, and he shall separate them one from another. One from another. As a shepherd separates his sheep from the goats, and he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the sovereign shall say to those on his right hand, Come, you blessed, O my Father, inherit the reign prepared for you from the foundation of the world.
There is a thing that was prepared for you. It says from the foundation of the world. That means before you was here, there was something for you to be doing. And the Most High is going to cause you to inherit that thing that was prepared for you before you was here. He's going to cause for you to inherit that thing. And so we see that with Jacob. He was supposed to go back and be in the land, the new land of his fathers, right? The new land of his fathers, which was the land of promise. He was supposed to be over there. And so before he was even born, a promise was made to Abraham. And so we're able to see over here that corresponds with what Yeshua is talking about over here in Matthew 25 and 34. There is a thing, a purpose that the Most High has for you that you're going to inherit. And this thing was prepared already for you before you even got on the scene. There was a script that was written just for you. And it's necessary for you to pick up that script and walk it out.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Because there are people who say, if Yah has it for me, then I don't have to do anything. He's going to make it happen anyway.
Well,
so I might as well just do whatever I want to do.
That's taking it too far, right? It's like we're given the proper tools, and then we don't have the proper execution to do the tasks with the tools that we were given. It's one thing to say that the Most High has something for me, and there's nothing that can take place to take that away. But the difference is that when we think about, especially in the example that we see over here, it was necessary for Jacob to get up and go somewhere.
He wasn't going to be able to do anything if he stayed with Laban.
Right, he couldn't have stayed with Laban. He had to get up and go. He had to trust in the Most High. He had to trust in the fact that the Most High had made these preparations for him, and then he had to go over there. Right? And so,
overcome his fear.
There's truth, right? He had to overcome these fears, right? Which we're seeing like he's in the process of doing. He don't meet up with them here in this chapter. We just see the preparation that's made, on his way to it, right?
I mean, he had a lot of problems. He had a problem if he stayed, and he had a problem if he left. Just seemed like he was just in a bad place. No matter what was going to happen.
Well, I guess it's it depends on the perspective, right? He couldn't stay. He had to leave. But when you think about the process that the Most High puts each and every one of us in, where you're at a crossroads in life, where it's time for you to do what the Most High is calling for you to be doing. Like you could keep on doing whatever it is that you've been doing, and nobody's forcing you to do anything, right? You could keep on with your status quo, or you can follow after the Most High. Now, when you follow after the Most High, it's similar to what Yeshua talks about. He said that you got to pick up your torture stake and follow me. And so, in other words, there's things, there's various levels of uncomfortableness that are associated with walking after the Most High through His Son Messiah. And so, you have to have that as an understanding, but there's something for you to be doing. I can't say that, Well, the Most High had a purpose for me, and that purpose is just going to drop out the sky into my lap, and there's nothing for me to have to do. That's just not thinking about things properly, right? We're able to look at Jacob and understand that, it was necessary for him to get up and go. Vayakov Halak. And Yaakov went. He had to get up and go somewhere. And that's the same thing Yeshua calls for his people to do, is to get up and to go somewhere. And that going somewhere is you following after him. And the way in which you're following after him includes sacrifice. Right? It includes sacrifice. There's something that is sacrificed. Right? There's something that is that you have to give up. In this case, you're giving up your own carnal desires, your own purposes. Right? You might have some purposes that you think you're supposed to be fulfilling in life. But what is it that the Most High has for you to be doing? Right? You got to be able to get in tune with that and walk that thing out. Maybe it could have been comfortable for Jacob just to chill over there with Laban. He don't got to think about nothing. Laban can set the parameters for his life. And then he can just go ahead and live his life according to parameters that Laban sets.
Whatever Laban say.
Whatever he say, I do. Right? He could have lived his life like that in a relatively, I say, comfortable way. Or he could step into the purpose that was created for him from the Most High, the Almighty Yah, and walk into that purpose. But we see when he does that, there's adversity that's involved. Like, he has to deal with the thing that he left in the first place. Oh, what this say? I'm not even reading. All these problems Jacob has after receiving the birthright blessing. These are things that he's got to deal with the things that he created.
Yes, he did. Right.
Even though the thing that he created was something that was purposed for him,
Yes.
there were things that he's reaping, in fact, what he sowed.
Yep.
Even though it was the will of the Most High, he's still reaping what he sowed. And so, we have to think about the fact that, there are things, that we do, have done in our lives. And, we may leave those things.
Yeah.
And we may forget about those things that we've done. But at some point, to some degree, in some way, you have to deal with all of the seeds that you planted.
That's right.
At some point, and to some degree, right? And so, but the thing is that the Most High has prepared a way for Jacob to be able to rightly deal with these things that created. In fact, he's causing for Jacob to deal with the things. Like, he set it up. He told him to leave. All right, let's look at something else here. Let's go over to. We still talk about Jacob, right? But we're dealing with our walk in this life, right? It looks a particular way, right? It's something that we have to be able to deal with and understand, right? Let's look over at Romans 8:14. Read 14 through 17. Make this a little bigger here. Okay, go ahead.
For as many as are led by the Spirit of Elohim, these are sons of Elohim. For you did not receive the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you received the spirit of adoption, by whom we cry out, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of Elohim. And if children, also heirs, truly heirs of Elohim, and co-heirs with Messiah, if indeed we suffer with him, in order that we also be exalted together.
He said all of that if indeed we suffer with him. You got all of these qualifiers over here in this situation, and people want to sit up here and say there's nothing that for us to be doing. Meanwhile, in these 1, 2, 3, 4 verses, we got all these qualifiers here. For as many as are led by the Spirit, those are the sons of Elohim. Oh, you want to be the son of Elohim, but you're not led by the Spirit? How that work? Oh, hold on. For the effect over here, I was sipping my tea. Look. How that work? Right? How you the people of the Most High? How you Yisrael? But you're not led by the Spirit. He said, for as many as are led by the Spirit of Elohim, these are the sons of Elohim. So we could just say, if you're not led by the Spirit, then you're not the son of Elohim. That's what it said right there. And so we got to understand that. And so being led by the Spirit, guess what it costs? That costs for you to suffer with Elohim, because he's going to put you in situations that are uncomfortable for your flesh. Your spirit is not comfortable for your spirit, man. It's uncomfortable for your carnal man, for your physical man. Right? But it's causing these uncomfortabilities for your carnal man. But what's going on is you walking in the Spirit of the Most High. That's what we seen Jacob do. Jacob knew he had to face his brother. He knew it. And he could have allowed for fear to cause him to say, man, I ain't no way I'm going back over there. I ain't heard from my mommy. She ain't told me to come back. I ain't coming back.
In fact, she probably would have told him don't come back, because he came out there with 400 men like he was about to kill him. Like, should have been like, he's a lot stronger now. He got people behind him. They gonna come out there and fight you.
He ain't been nothing but doing nothing but running around in the woods every day, probably killing stuff with his bare hands.
Oh my goodness.
Killing Nimrod.
You know what I'm saying? Using no weapons. Just killing things and eating raw meat. Mm-hmm. All this time just thinking about Jacob.
I can't wait to kill him.
Just think about his brother. You dead to me. Wait till your daddy down and kill you. All this time. And so but in the face of that, Jacob, hearing from the Most High say, go back home. And he has to, with knowledge, know that his brother wants to get him, and he got to get up and get all of his people and go. That is him being led by the Spirit. And so the same thing is true for each and every one of us. We have these basic things that we, just have to do just by by virtue of us being the people of the Most High. Like, we observe these holy times instituted by the Most High. Where the world that we live in, these are just regular old days to the world. But for us, these are the set apart times of the Most High. And so it don't fit into the schedule of the world. But we got to say, I follow after the Most High and what he say first. And so we know that in the world, there's certain adversities that we face just by simple fact of the Most High set apart days and times. But that's just really the tip of the iceberg, really. But again, these are all things that can manifest different adversities in our lives that we know that we had to face when we say that we're going to follow after the Most High, when we say we're going to allow the leading and guiding of the Spirit of Elohim to be the greatest influence that we have in our lives. And so it's interesting when we look at Jacob, where his life was the same. Like our situation is the same as his. There's things that we must face, and in spite of those things, uncomfortable and otherwise, we have to face them anyway. All right, let's keep on going over here. Let's see here. Oh, I wanted to also, I mentioned this, but let's look at this real quick. Let's go to Genesis 28. Start reading at verse 11 here.
11. And he came upon a place and stopped over for the night. For the sun had set, and he took one of the stones of that place and put it at his head. And he lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed and saw a ladder set up on the earth, and its top reached to the heavens. And saw messengers of Elohim going up and coming down on it. And see, Yahweh stood above it and said, I am Yahweh, Elohim of Abraham your father, and the Elohim of Yitzchak. The land on which you are lying, I give it to you, and your seed. And your seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall break forth to the west and to the east, to the north and the south. And all the clans of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your seed. And see, I am with you, and shall guard you wherever you go, and shall bring you back to this land. For I am not going to leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you.
Okay, very good. So we see that the Most High made a promise to Jacob and said, I will bring you back. He said, I will bring you back. And so when we have to look and understand that when we see where Jacob's on his way back, where he gives Jacob this similar situation where he has this kind of spiritual interaction with angels, which you would think would cause him to remember the thing that the Most High said to him the last time he had this spiritual interaction, where he said that I will bring you back. And so understanding the promises that the Most High has for us, gives us strength to be able to go and do the things that he calls for us to be doing. Right? When we understand fully what it is that the Most High already said he was going to do for us, he's not going back on what he said. right? So when he says that he's able to hold us in his hand and not allow for anybody to pluck us out of his hand, if we remember these things that he already said, it should reassure us when we go and continue in the things that he calls for us to be doing. Okay, so let's look at some of the things that we see with Jacob, as he sends off these messengers of Elohim. Let's go down to read again. Let's see, verses 3 and 4 of Genesis 32.
And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, his brother, in the land of Seir, the field of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, say this to my master Esau. Your servant Jacob said this. I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now.
Okay, very good. So it's interesting when we look at Jacob and his actions, right? And the way that he delivers this message. He don't deliver this message kind of with high-mindedness, right? There's humility involved in his situation where there could be room, I don't want to say would be, there could be room for pride to exist over here. Well, let's say confidence. I don't want to say pride. I want to say there could be room for confidence to exist. Understanding that the Most High said what he said. The Most High said, I'll bring you back. So he could just be like, Esau, I'm coming back. And what you gonna do about it? I got the Most High with me. Who you got with you? Like, cause in all truth, the Most High is with him, right? So he could have, like, technically, well, potentially could have said, well, Esau, what you want to do? The Most High is with me, and I'm coming back. He don't say that, right? He speaks with humility. Your servant, Yaakov, right? This is what you say to them, right? Say this to my master. And he's not even saying this to Esau. He's saying to the messengers, say this to my master. He wants them to have a particular understanding. Like, this is my master, my brother Esau. You say this to my master, he says. Your servant Yaakov, he says to them. And so it's interesting, the example that we see with Yaakov, who understanding that the creator and sustainer of all things is backing him. And yet and still he's walking in humility. Understanding that the Most High has a task for him to be doing, causing him to know and understand that inside of a particular set of parameters, if he walks inside of these parameters, there's nothing that could stop him from doing it, and yet he's still walking in humility. And so when we see people who are representatives of the Most High, why we see them manifesting pride? I mean, you can see from a carnal perspective where you can understand where the pride comes from. I'm his people. He chose me. He this whole thing over here is for me. I am excited about the fact that he cared enough about me to bring me out. Therefore, you should be happy to lick my boot.
Well, there's a lot of scripture where the Most High actually boasts about Israel.
That's right.
And I guess if you listen to that enough,
But he's doing it though.
right? Yeah. But if you listen to it enough, you'd be like, oh, I am something.
That's what your flesh wants you to do. Right? Your carnal mind wants you to do that. He's saying the truth. The Most High did choose you. The Most High did call you out of darkness into his most marvelous light. He did have a plan for you while you was yet in sin. Right? He does look at you and call you the apple of his eye. But all of these things don't justify pride being manifest in you. Even though from a carnal perspective, you could look and understand and see where it come from. Because, carnally, when somebody gives you all of these accolades and makes you feel this certain kind of way about yourself, I deserve this. I deserve everything I get. Right? This is what I deserve. You should, in fact, lick my boots. You are lower than me. How can he don't have these things to say about you. In fact, he got bad things to say about you.
Yeah, that too.
Right? And so, but when we look and see at Jacob, he's speaking to these spiritual messengers who know. They know all of the things. And they saying, listen, he says to them, say this to Esau, my master. Like he's telling them that. Like he could have just said, say this to Esau, your servant Jacob. It's like he's doubling down on the humility to the messengers who they're neutral, really. He don't have no reason to have like a false humility towards them. It's not even like he's saying, yeah, just say to them like, just act like, just keep it like humble, like and say that I said your servant, right? But him, Jacob, saying to them, say this to my master Esau, your servant. Like what they're saying is your servant Jacob, but he's saying say this to my master. He doubles down on the humility over here. So it's not even, it can't even be said to be like a false humility. Like he means these things that he's saying, that the message that he wants to be conveyed to them is rooted in humility.
But do you think that he was being deceptive, or you think he actually believed that Esau was his master?
I think that he was keeping it. I think he was keeping it humble. He wasn't allowing for the place that the Most High had brought him to. He wasn't allowing the blessings that the Most High has given to him. He wasn't allowing that to bring him outside of the character of the Most High. The Most High, does all of these things. From a carnal perspective, when you receive, when you do nothing but gain, when your life is a particular way, it can cause something inside of you called pride. And we see the exact opposite of that with Jacob over here, with the way in which that he's speaking to these messengers over here. And I think that it is a very important lesson for us to learn about humility. The Messiah, the actual word of Elohim made flesh. when we think about Yeshua's part in creation, it said in John that nothing was made without him. Meanwhile, he presents himself from a physical standpoint. He presented himself as a servant. And so from a literal standpoint, he has every right to be the king that he actually is. But he comes, he came and dwelled and lived as a servant to teach us humility. Right? What's this say here? Yaakov at the godly encampment sends Elohim's messengers or his own messengers to greet Esau. Question: perhaps Elohim's angels rouse Esau's army to follow. I think that question mark. I think that Elohim's messengers were spiritual messengers and not physical messengers. I think that what we see going on in verse 3 is the same thing that we see going on in verse 2 in terms of these messengers of Elohim. And so the same way that we're able to petition to the Almighty, the same way that we're able to petition to the creator and sustainer of all things to be with us, in the midst of our trials, the way in which he is in fact with us is by sending his deputies to come and deal with our situations from a spiritual standpoint. Perhaps Elohim's angels rouse Esau's army to follow. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by the second part, but I think that the messengers, the angels of Elohim, definitely influenced Esau's army and allowed for there to be a peaceful meeting that was inevitably going to happen. So they would have to have had influenced Esau. They had to have influenced Esau and his army positively. I'm saying positively from Jacob's standpoint. So if you mean roused his army to be in the favor of Jacob, then I guess I would be in agreement with what you're saying.
Maybe it's making too much noise.
Okay, so we see in verse 4 an example of Jacob's humility, and also read for us again and read verse 5 here again for us. Yeah.
And I have bulls and donkeys, flocks and male and female servants, and I have sent to inform my master to find favor in your eyes.
He's still talking about Esau, right? He's still talking about Esau, right? And he's referring to him in this way. And again, this is just, I'm saying, an example of Jacob manifesting the character of the Most High, right? Where he has, again, thinking about Yeshua, he had every right to be a certain kind of way. However, we see something that he describes over in chapter 17 of the book of John, when he's talking about having his glory be restored like it was from before. And so when we think about the idea of Messiah actually removing, having glory, favor, illumination, heaviness, weight, kavod removed from him so that he was able to come and interact with us. And he walks around in that kind of humilified state, right? Where he's calling for us to also live and function in that way. Hold on one second here. Okay, very good. All right, so let's keep on going here. Let's drop down. Anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments about kind of what we see with Jacob and his interactions with these angels and sending them off to deal with Esau before we go down to the second part of the chapter here, dealing with this whole wrestling match. All right, so when we look down, something interesting happens, as in the whole time, Jacob is, he's in total preparation. Right, he says that I'm going to go ahead. I'm gonna put these particular ones up front, so that whenever they meet up with Esau's army, those are the ones that he could just even have. Right, he could go ahead and have them ones. Right, this will be my my gift to him. Right, and his whole mindset is that. I did him. He know that he did him. He know he did him dirty, and Esau. He wanted a pound of flesh, right? And so he's ready to give it to him. So his whole time he's setting up for that, and we see the situation happen with this angel. Right? What was you gonna say, something?
Well, I was just thinking about how even with him preparing how he was going to set up the camps and not to go out and giving him all these gifts and stuff like that, I feel like he's appealing to Esau's carnality because he knows Esau likes stuff. He's more so on the tangible than on the spiritual. So if he gives him stuff, then he might be able to buy his favor.
Well, he's dealing with Esau where he's at.
Yeah.
He's dealing with Esau where he's at. He is carnal, right? And so you have to be all things to all men. He's dealing with this carnal man from a carnal perspective. I'll give you. I got all this stuff for you, right? It says in Proverbs, a soft word turns away wrath, right? He's not trying to get no wrath. He's trying to just make safe passages
He's
back.
trying to get through.
Right. Okay, so we see over here with this whole situation with Jacob, who, has this, it seems as if, right, he is different from before when he sees the ladder with the angels going up and down, even with the messengers, right? He's making a petition to the Most High and sending off these messengers like he's not sleeping, right? And so in this situation where he has these, he sends his people a little bit ahead, and then he's, kind of behind, and he's kind of left alone. And then it says, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. it's interesting that when we look at this situation over here, the way in which that is kind of describing this whole thing, and we see this man, quote unquote, wrestling with Jacob, because just from a kind of a surface level situation, right? Jacob interacts with this man and wrestles him. He does see, unless we just talk about the fact that Jacob is just kind of just a submissive kind of a person in general, because he kind of, even though he's wrestling with the man, and even though it seems that he's kind of a formidable opponent, he's demanding a blessing from the quote unquote man that he's wrestling. And so even though we see them kind of in this tussle, why they over here squabbling with one another, we see that still there's humility involved, because he wants to receive this blessing. Like, this one that he's wrestling with is still able to bestow blessings upon him. All right, so we're able to see a level still of humility here, and understanding that even though it's kind of a partial understanding, he's not really sure who he's dealing with. I think that there's still kind of a hint of humility involved in this thing that we're able to see from Yaakov. I think that by the time we get through the whole thing, that we're not able to only say that this is a man that he wrestled. I think we have to be able to believe whatever Jacob is telling us to believe, and he thinks that he saw the face of Elohim, when this thing is done, right? This is why he calls this place, if you look and read again verse 30.
And Yaakov called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved.
Well, one could say that he wrestled a man, and while he was wrestling the man, he saw the face of Elohim that may have been different from the man. I guess somebody could make that argument. Somebody could say, well, it was a man, it said it was a man, and then while he was wrestling the man, he saw Elohim's face. I guess somebody could
That's
make
very
that,
complicated.
somebody could make that argument, right? Because that's what happens. I'm saying that in the midst of this interaction here, Yaakov somehow became face to face with Elohim. Whether it was the quote unquote, whether it was the man himself, or it was just something that he experienced while he was in the midst of wrestling the man, is yet to be seen. I think that we have a kind of representation of the Most High within the man, which even goes along with what we see in terms of the naming of Yaakov to Israel. In terms of, read verse 28 where it says there.
28, and he said, your name is no longer Yaakov, but Yisrael, because you have striven with Elohim and with men, and have overcome.
Okay, now, wait a second now. We getting into something now, because it's interesting. It's interesting when we look at verse 28. Because 28 is describing Jacob striving with Elohim and with men. So is Jacob wrestling with a representative of Elohim who is a man? Or is he wrestling with Elohim? And then the striving with men is just the other things that happened in his life that he just overcame, separate from this situation. So we have like a culmination of the life of Jacob, where there was men that he overcame, like Esau or Laban or whoever else up to this point, and he strove with them and he overcame, and then now he's striving with Elohim and he overcame that too. Or is this just dealing with one particular situation, which is, this whole wrestling situation all in one? I think the situation here is the defining moment, not like things outside of that, but actually this. It's interesting when you think about the idea of naming. Like, so who gives you a name? Like your parents give you a name. Husbands. We see that Adam named Hava. Fathers named their sons. We see instances where mothers named their children, and then the fathers came and renamed. Right? So
That's
it's,
what happened with Jacob.
huh?
That's what happened with Jacob. He renamed.
Right. And so we see where there are particular entities that have the naming rights, basically, as it pertains to people. And those people are fathers, husbands, and the Most High, mothers too, I guess, parents. Right? And so, not just random people, right? Not just random people that come along, unless, again, we think about these malaks, these deputized people, individuals that were dispatched from the king, right? But we have to think about the perspective of Jacob. Jacob, from his perspective, met with Elohim in this situation, right? And so one of the main things that we think about when we look at Jacob and his interaction with this man, quote unquote, where it says that you will no longer be called Jacob, right? Your name is no longer called Yaakov, but Yisrael. Yisrael, right? The same thing happened when we look at Avram, where the Most High said, you will no longer be called Avram, but Avraham. And then once we have that happen, we don't see Avram referred to as Avram, but Avraham from that point forward. When we look at Sarai, when the Most High said, you will no longer be called, your name is no longer called Sarai, but Sarah. From that point forward, we don't see her referred to by her old name anymore. Because the Most High said it, he put it in place, and then it was forever in place, right? It was never revoked. It was never taken away. So when we look at Jacob now, we always see Jacob's name popping back up. Even though it's said over here, your name is no longer called Yaakov, but Yisrael.
I mean, even the next verse it says in Jacob and Yaakov.
Immediately, right? Immediately it says Yaakov. Like maybe what we can't say it. Like we gotta we gotta be reminded. It's too soon to just switch over in this next verse. We gotta be able to catch up and know that it's still talking about the one that we call Jacob in verse 29 and then verse 30. Finally down in 32, it says the children of Yisrael touched the socket of the Jacob. We never quite get to the place of the full transfer over from Jacob to Israel. Anybody know why? They could just put it down in the comments. Just stick it right over there if you have any thoughts about why that is.
You know what?
Because when we look over here, it's interesting. It's interesting that, essentially in Scripture from this point forward, Jacob and Israel is interchangeable with one another. Interchangeable. One is just as good as the other in terms of referencing an individual or a particular people. Look over at Genesis 46. Genesis 46, read verse 2.
And Elohim spoke to Yisrael in the visions of the night and said, Yaakov, not Yaakov. And he said, here I am.
It said Elohim spoke. Is he playing games or something? Like, he the one who said it. Like, if you said it, why ain't it done? Unless we go back to the fact that it wasn't really Elohim. Maybe it was just a man. Because why wasn't it set in stone? Because now Elohim is calling him, and he calling him Jacob.
And why does it say he spoke to Israel and then Jacob?
Because we know it's Israel, but he's still calling him by his old name, Jacob. But maybe this one here, maybe this place here, it says Israel. That's for us, the reader, to see. But when he's still calling by Junebug. He's still calling by his little name that
Old name.
Yeah, that only the family call him Jacob, Junebug. They're interchangeable. We see them both right here, it seems. Let's look at this. Exodus 3. Read 15 and 16.
And Elohim said further to Moshe, thus you are to say to the children of Israel, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzchak, and the Elohim of Yaakov has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and is my remembrance to all generations. Go, and you shall gather the elders of Israel together, and say to them, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Yitzchak, and of Yaakov, appeared to me, saying, I have indeed visited you and seen what is done to you in Mitzrayim.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so again, here we have both, right? The Elohim of Yaakov, he's saying it to the children of Israel. Shula say, future Israel, the Toldot generations. The future Israel, you saying is Yisrael. Jeremiah refers to him as Jacob as well in the prophecy of Jacob's troubles. Okay, so this already disrupts the future idea, because if we're talking about Jeremiah as the prophet, it's talking about Jacob. The future, if we say the children of Israel, that does sound like it's the future. But again, when we look to this verse here and
Please.
in Jeremiah, we see something different. Let's look at this is a good one here. If we look at Psalms, what's this say? Israel's spiritual name, Yaakov, physical. The teacher is usually denoted. Okay, now if we want to turn this into a metaphysical situation and think about it from that perspective, and Yisrael, spiritual, and Yaakov, physical, is the way we started talking about this. We were saying that when we look at Jacob here with this chapter here, it's the beginning of his walk. It's beginning of his walk. And we see that we're able to see a type of transformation in Jacob. And so I say that when we look at Jacob, when we look at Yisrael, when we look at Jacob, Israel, Yaakov, Israel, we see with Jacob from the idea of looking at his as a person, we see he is a picture of carnality. Jacob is. He is the supplanter, right? He goes by physical means to acquire spiritual things. Jacob does. And Yisrael, we see that he, the kind of maturing version of Jacob, we see over time he begins to operate from a spiritual perspective. We see pictures of him operating from a spiritual standpoint to reach these physical needs, right? He's sending out these spirits, these angels of Elohim, to go before him and fight the battle before he even gets there. Right? It's a physical confrontation that he is about to be potentially participating in, and he is petitioning to the Most High and the help that he's able to provide in order to conquer these physical tasks. And so when we look at the walk of Jacob, of Israel, there's a progression that goes from carnality into a more spiritual connection, right? But I wanted to look over at, if we look at Psalms, because again, when we look at this in the scriptures, you can't say that that one is only this way and the other is only that way. It's kind of they're kind of synonymous with one another. Read verse 5.
5. For he raised a witness in Jacob and set a Torah in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to teach them to their children.
The King James says, what was that? Establish a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel. Right? He's talking about really the same thing. What's the difference? Right? What is the witness that was raised? It's the law. Right? It's the same thing. What about 81? Look at 81 and 4. 81.
And for this is a law of Israel, and a right ruling of the Elohim of Jacob.
Okay, so again, these things in the way Scripture gives it to us, for the most part, is kind of this interchangeable situation. But again, when we think about this from kind of a metaphysical understanding, kind of the spiritual understanding of the pictures that we're able to see from the life of Jacob, the transformation, the the way in which he matures over time, is that we're able to see him go from this carnal existence to a spiritual pursuit. Right? We're not going to say spiritual existence, because he's back and forth. Sometimes he's Jacob, sometimes he's Israel. Right? And so, but what he is on for sure is this spiritual pursuit. Right? He's not carnal. He's not in the category of carnal. He's in the category of pursuing spirituality. Right? But he's not spiritual. Right?
That's interesting.
He's not spiritual. Right? He's a human being, but he has spiritual pursuits. And so when we think about our walk, it's the exact same thing, right? Where we go from this carnal existence where everything that we do pertains to our carnality, our flesh, right? We're Jacob. We seek to attain spiritual things from a carnal perspective. How much can I read? How much can I learn? How many websites can I find? How many YouTube channels can I subscribe to?
Oh my goodness.
How many Bible verses can I memorize? All of these things are all carnal, really. There has to be a spiritual connection that is established in order for us to really be on the true path. And so, but we're still walking around in this flesh, and we're not spiritual, right? When you walk into a wall, you're stopped by it every time, right? You will not walk through a wall because your flesh won't allow it. But you have spiritual pursuits, right?
It has to be a translation to the spiritual.
Right. You're spiritually minded, is what it says over there in Romans, right? To be spiritually minded is life and peace. And then when the master comes and returns, however he is, so shall we be. And so we're transformed when he comes and glorifies us, right? But until then, we move forward in our spiritual pursuits, just like Jacob, right? He was about his spiritual father's business, right? He was about the purpose that was given to him from the Most High. The covenant, the Abraham's covenant, was fortified with him. The Most High came and visited him and fortified the covenant with him. He repurposed his life and caused him to know and understand what his purpose in life was, and that was to be the progenitor of the people of the Most High. And we see that there is a, this is the way that the ways of the Most High is spread throughout the earth through his people. And so when we look at Jacob, we see his transformation, which again is a picture of ours, where we go from this carnal existence to the next step being spiritual pursuits, right? We're living a life that is entirely connected to enlarging and attaining and manifesting the kingdom of Elohim, right? Which is the ultimate in spiritual pursuits. This becomes our life. This becomes our purpose. And so we see that with Jacob, right? And it's interesting the way that Scripture does this and kind of inexplicitly teaches us this by giving us this name change that isn't permanent. Like all of the other name changes that we see this kind of this battle per se that exists even with the proclaiming of the man or the people, right? Which our whole journey is this idea of striving with men and with Elohim. But we have to actually win. Right? And it's interesting also that at the end of the battle he gets what he wanted, which was the blessing. But he leaves out with a limp though. He leave out different, physically changed. You could say he won because he didn't want his opponent to tap. He wanted his opponent to bless him, and he got that. But he walks away with a limp though. He put that submission move on him, right? And pop that hip. And that's why we walk around with a limp. JK. Okay, what are these? What do we see over here? I'm speaking of the name of Jacob. I'm speaking of the name of Jacob to Israel at Genesis 32:29, and in its completion at Genesis 35:10 through 12 includes Jacob and his posterity and seems twofold. I'm not sure what that means.
32.
What's this say here? Physical and spiritual, now in Olam Haba, that which is to come. Figure 4 leg lock. Yes. 32:29. That's what we looked at, right? Okay, yes, and then 35:10 and 35:10 through 12. What does that say?
And Elohim said to him, "Your name is Yaakov. Your name is no longer called Yaakov, but Yisrael is your name." So he called his name Yisrael. And Elohim said to him, "I am El Shaddai. Be fruitful and increase. A nation and a company of nations shall be from you, and sovereigns come from your body. And the land which I gave Abraham and Yitzchak I give to you, and to your seed after you I give this land.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could look over at further down where maybe he even reiterates the thing that happened already. But yeah, and still, when we look throughout Scripture, beyond that point, we see kind of the toggling back and forth. And so I think that, for me anyway, this is just the way I look at it. I think that the Scripture gives it to us in that way to cause for us to think about the idea of this striving, where we live this life where we always have to deal with the flesh. We always have to deal with carnality. It may not rule our life, right? It may not be the thing that rules us, but it's always a thing that exists that we have to fight and actively deal with wherever, whenever, we do anything. Why is it the 12 tribes of Israel and not Jacob? I think that's good, right? I'd have to look and see if I could find 12 tribes of Jacob. I wonder if I
I
can.
don't think so. But I do know it's called it's sometimes called the congregation of Jacob. There's the example would be Deuteronomy 33 verse 4.
It says the congregation of Jacob.
Yeah.
Well,
The law.
there you
is
go.
the congregation. But I mean, it's not the 12 tribes
Well,
of Jacob. But
well,
it's the congregation.
First Chronicles 16 and 13 says the children of Jacob. O you seed of Israel, his servant, you children of Jacob, his chosen ones. It's it's one of those things, right? I think the point is, a point. I don't want to say the point. It's not the only thing that can be said about it. I think a point is having the understanding of our inability in this realm, in this form, to be separated from carnality. It's always in the background. It's always something that must be dealt with. But it's always something that we're able to prevail over through the power of the Ruach HaKodesh. And so when we think about kind of just bringing it down to a close, when we think about this life that we live and the pictures that we gain from Jacob, from Israel, to me, I think about Jacob again as being the idea of Jacob being that lower self, that carnal self, that carnal mind, where it only deals with carnality, when it just deals with appetites, when it just deals with physical carnal desires. But the picture that we gain from Yisrael is that higher self, that spiritual mind, that individual who has been infused with the Ruach HaKodesh and has began the spiritual pursuits that the Most High has called for us to participate in since before the foundation of the world, right? He had something that he wants for us to have inheritance, an inheritance that He wants for us to be connected to, that was formed before we were formed. And so it's necessary for us to leave, to forsake our carnal minds, and to strive to walk in the mind of the Ruach HaKodesh.
Looking at this verse, Psalm 147:19. He declares his word to Jacob, his statutes and judgments to Israel.
Yeah.
It's just like
Right, because when you think about His word, His statutes, and His judgments, they're all His word.
Yeah, they all go
Right?
together.
We could add precepts, commandments. These are all His words. Right? And so it's interesting, again, the way that we find it in the scripture, it gives us that. But I think a good way to think about it is in the idea of, striving, which has to be our existence in this time until Messiah returns.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so we, for now, are going to be done unless anybody has any questions, comments to be added. All right, so that being said, we will be done for now. Thank everybody for their comments. It's always better when we have questions, comments added to a situation. Yah willing, we'll be back on next Shabbat with more look at the life of Israel. So we'll say, for now, we'll say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And Yah willing, on next week, we will be back.